Once upon a time, there were two sisters, Mangita and Larina, who lived in a small cottage. Mangita was a hard worker. She used to work in her father's grocery store in her spare time. Larina, on the other hand, loved to travel and have fun. When she was bored, she looked at herself by the river and combed her hair for a long time.
Today, I am more beautiful than my sister again.
One day, Mangita and Larina's father went on a long journey from which there was no return. Although Mangita was very sad about her father's departure, Larina was so happy.
Hee hee hee! Now every day I can sit by the river until morning.
After her father left, Mangita started working harder. She was sweeping the floor in the mornings, making a delicious soup in the afternoon, and hanging the laundry. Larina's only pastime was to cause trouble for her sister. She was dirtying the carpets in the house, pouring ice-cold water into the cooked soup. Why is the soup still cold? And why are these carpets dirty? I just cleaned them.
The animals you feed have made them dirty. Huh!
One day, Larina went out for a walk in the forest. She was just plucking the unripe fruit and threw them into the river. Meanwhile, an old woman who was walking slowly approached her.
Hello, beautiful girl. I'm very hungry. Can you give me some fruit too?
Larina handed the old woman the tasteless wild strawberries she had just picked.
Ma'am, you can eat as much as you want. These are the most delicious strawberries in the world.
The old woman had a stomachache as soon as she ate the strawberries.
Are these strawberries delicious? Ooh! Thank you anyway.
As Larina was returning home, the old woman fell asleep. While Mangita was out picking vegetables in the forest for the meal, she saw the old woman who fell ill. She immediately brought her home and put her on the bed.
What is this woman doing in our house? She smells so bad.
Don't say that, Larina. The woman is very sick. We must feed her with healthy food to heal her. Mangita prepared hot soups and herbal teas for the old woman. On the other hand, Larina secretly threw away the soups and put soil in the herbal teas. Larina, did you put soil in this herbal tea? Tell me now!
No, it wasn't me. That old woman put it herself.
Within a few days, the old woman recovered.
You are a kind-hearted girl, Mangita. If you ever get sick, eat these blueberries every day. You'll recover immediately.
Mangita, who was very tired of doing housework alone for a long time, eventually fell very ill and was lying in bed. Larina, can you bring the blueberries the old lady gave me? But Larina ate all the blueberries herself.
There is nothing here. The birds you feed must have eaten them.
Mangita became even more sluggish and fell asleep in a sweat. Larina, on the other hand, left the house and went to the river to comb her hair. At that time, the old woman appeared before her again.
Hey, little girl, where is your sister? She packed fruit in sacks and went to work. Ugh, what's it to you?
The old woman realized that Larina was lying. She immediately went to their house to see Mangita. When the old woman saw this young girl who was helping her, sweating and sick, she was very upset and wept for a long time. Larina, who was watching them from the window, laughed out loud. Just then, the old woman turned into a beautiful fairy. Larina was very surprised to see the fairy. She happily entered the house.
You are a fairy. I opened my home to you. You owe me. Give me the most beautiful hair in the world. Quick, use magic now and make my wish come true.
In fact, when the fairy saw Larina for the first time, she turned into an old woman to see if she was a good person. I gave the opportunity to do one favor, but you always did bad. At that moment, the fairy waved her magic wand from side to side. Larina's hair has turned into ivy.
Ah, my hair! What happened to my hair? They're so ugly now! Help!
Larina ran to the riverside in fear and looked at her hair. As flies were flying around her head, her ivy hair was stuck in the ground all of a sudden.
I've become so ugly. I don't want to look at myself anymore.
At that time, the fairy fed Mangita a blueberry, and Mangita finally recovered and opened her eyes. Thank you, fairy. I feel so much better now. The fairy waved her wand twice and turned the little cottage they lived in into a stunning palace. Mangita was very surprised and impressed when she saw the palace. Goodness is always rewarded, young girl, and this palace is your reward. Thank you, fairy. What about my sister? What happened to her? Your sister will forever stare at her ugly reflection by the riverside. But I love my sister so much. What's the point of living alone in this huge palace without her? Give us a happy life in our cottage again, fairy. That's all I wish from you. The fairy was very happy when she heard Mangita's words. First, she transformed the magnificent palace back into a cottage again. Later, she went to Larina and restored her ivy hair to its former beautiful state with her magic wand. Larina hugged Mangita happily. You saved me. I'm very sorry. I will be a good person now. I promise. Larina understood at that moment that the happiness of helping people is worth everything. Because happiness becomes more beautiful when shared.
The Goose Girl. Once upon a time, a queen and her daughter were living together in the most beautiful castle in the country. The princess had a fairy she loved very much. This fairy always protected her. One day, when the princess reached the age of marriage, she decided to set out to meet the prince of another country. The queen gave her daughter a box of jewels to take with her. If anyone realizes that you are a princess on the way, bad things can happen to you, my dear daughter. So you will be accompanied by my assistant rather than a soldier. The good fairy also had gifts for the princess. She gave her a talking horse named Falada.
Hey, I'm happy to hit the road, my princess.
There is one more thing I want to give you, my princess. The fairy gave the princess a handkerchief. This is a magical handkerchief for my princess. Keep it always with you and use it when you need it. The princess said goodbye and got on Falada, and her assistant was on a donkey. Hours later, the princess, walking along the forest road, was very tired and stopped to get some rest. Oh, I'm so thirsty. We have water with us. Could you please give me some? The assistant girl drank from the water.
Sorry, princess, but I was so thirsty too, so I drank it all. Find yourself another water. I'm not your servant.
The princess was surprised at the servant's lack of respect, but she didn't say anything. They continued on the road. After some time passed, the princess stopped. Royal assistant, could you please get me some water from the fountain, please?
Sorry, princess, but I'm not your maid. I told you. You can get off your horse and get your own water.
The princess and Falada made eye contact.
You know, I'm starting to have second thoughts about this assistant girl. You'd better be careful around her.
The princess got off her horse, and she got down and drank some water with her palm. The magic handkerchief in her pocket suddenly started talking.
Be careful, my princess. This assistant girl is dangerous.
But as the princess bowed down to drink, her magic handkerchief fell into the water. Oh no! Seeing the magic handkerchief flowing in the water, the assistant girl saw her opportunity.
You have no more power left. From now on, I am giving all the orders. You will do exactly what I say. Now, take off the princess clothes and give them to me. If you tell anyone the truth, I'll get you jailed.
The assistant girl did not only wear the princess's clothes, she also got on her horse, Falada, and started to move forward. The real princess, on the other hand, got on the donkey and slowly followed. After a while, they both arrived at the prince's palace. When the prince welcomed them, he thought the assistant girl was a princess and invited her in. But he also noticed the servant girl, who was actually the real princess.
Well, my prince, she's just a servant. She doesn't need to come inside the palace with us. It would be best if you gave her a job and remind her of her place as my servant.
So the prince did so and introduced her to a boy named Conrad, who was the keeper of the geese.
By helping Conrad, you can be a goose shepherd too.
My prince, I have one more request from you. Could you tie up this grumpy horse? Better yet, lock him in chains. He almost threw me off on the way here.
So the prince summoned an assistant and ordered him to chain the horse to a barn. The assistant girl was trying to make sure her deception stayed a secret and fooled the prince. The real princess was sad and wept that her horse Falada had been chained up. She immediately went to the barn to see him. Poor Falada was just standing there in chains. Oh, Falada, what have they done to you?
If your queen mother had heard what had happened, she would be very upset, my princess.
Sadly, the princess left her horse Falada and started herding geese in the meadow with Conrad. After a while, she sat down on a stone to rest and unfastened the gold hair clips that held her beautiful hair. When Conrad saw these shiny hair clips, he immediately approached the princess's hair and wanted to take them.
Golden hair clips? I want these golden hair clips.
Ah! Leave my hair alone!
Blow, crazy wind, blow fast and straight. Take Conrad's hat and take it away. At that moment, such a crazy wind blew that Conrad's hat flew off his head. After pursuing the hat flying up the mountains, Conrad finally caught his hat. The princess, who had retied her hair, hid her golden hair clips. After herding the geese together until sunset, Conrad and the princess finally returned to the palace. Conrad was immediately before the king.
I don't want to work with the stranger you've given me.
Why, Conrad?
She's crazy. She talks to her horse and is blowing off my hat and making fun of me. She doesn't work at all.
After these words, doubts fell into the mind of the king. The next day, the king followed the princess in secret. The princess first went to the barn and talked to her chained horse, Falada, again. Seeing the horse talking, the king could not believe his eyes. He then went to the meadow where Conrad and the princess were herding the geese, and he hid behind the bush. After a while, he noticed the golden hair clips in the princess's hair. Blow, crazy wind, blow right away. Take Conrad's hat and take it away. After these words of the princess, a very crazy wind started to blow, and the hat flew again. Conrad ran after his hat up to the mountains. Meanwhile, the princess hid her golden hair clips again in her hair. Seeing this, the king was very surprised and secretly returned to the palace immediately. In the evening, the king summoned the princess to his presence. He asked her about her talking horse, Falada, golden hair clips, and the wild wind. At that moment, the princess started to cry. I cannot tell you, Your Highness. If I did, I would go to jail.
Don't be afraid to tell the truth, young girl. Tell me.
The princess told the king everything, one by one, starting from the very beginning.
So, you are the real princess. Don't worry. No harm will come to you. Now go and get ready like a princess.
The king immediately summoned his son, the prince, and told him everything. That same evening, without saying anything to the fake princess, the prince arranged a feast at the palace. The real princess was sitting on one side of the prince, and the fake one on the other. The beauty of the real princess was dazzling. But the fake princess did not recognize her.
Who is this girl? What is she doing at the feast? Where did she find those shiny jewelry? That beautiful dress!
Oh, palace nobles, I have a story for you. Listen to me now.
The king started telling what happened to the princess, as if it was someone else's story. In the end, he asked everyone how someone who deceives people with lying should be punished.
The heaviest punishment must be given to that liar, my king. Her feet must be chained, and she must be imprisoned forever.
Is that so? But it is you who are the liar in this story. You have given yourself your own punishment. Soldiers, take this liar out of my presence now.
The assistant girl thus suffered the punishment for ruining the princess's life by lying. The prince proposed to the real princess that night. Then the princess and the prince went to the barn and rescued the talking horse, Falada.
The truth finally came out, my princess. If your queen mother saw this moment, she would cry with happiness.
The princess and the prince have started a new life in which they are very happy now. And the princess's good-hearted fairy was always with them, protecting them from all evil forever.